Ow. Do you mind? Ow. Don't worry, it's not my hair, it's just a bit of flesh from the ceratopsin just there. Hey everybody, how are we doing? So I thought this week I'd try a new little format, new little series. I'm going to call it Sup With, as in what's up with, and we're going to discuss a topic in paleontology, anything from speciation to speculation to just everything and anything daft, anything that's a bit stupid, anything that's, sup with him, sup with that, sup with everyone, sup with me, a lot of things. And today's topic, sup with Daspletosaurus. You know, the one that tried to eat me hair. So with Daspletosaurus. Well, Daspletosaurus was a large Daspletosaurian tyrannosaurid from the Campanian of North America, so around about 77 to 74 million years ago, 3 million year reign roughly. It lived during a time when North America was actually split into two, and this included one on the western part, which was Laramidia, and then you had the eastern one, which was Appalachia. So yeah, Daspletosaurus was exclusively from Laramidia, and this meant that it was a much thinner landmass, but there was a whole diversity of different dinosaurs around that time. There were tyrannosaurs, there were ceratopsians, there were hadrosaurs, there were dromaeosaurs, there was a whole bunch of different animals walking around. So the first specimen of Daspletosaurus, which actually the holotype specimen, was discovered in 1921 by famed fossil finder Charles Sternberg. He's found a whole myriad of different animals, including ceratopsians, hadrosaurs, tyrannosaurs, and even mosasaurs and plesiosaurs. So he's very, 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 very successful. Now, initially, the specimen that became the holotype of Daspletosaurus wasn't actually recognised as a separate taxon back in the day. It was actually lumped into Gorgosaurus for a time, which was a similar tyrannosaur that actually Daspletosaurus lived alongside, except Daspletosaurus was bulkier, while Gorgosaurus was a bit more lean, a bit more slender. But in 1970, Dale Russell, who wrote the Mosasaur Bible, go and watch my previous videos if you don't know what I'm on about, he actually diagnosed this animal as a separate taxon from Gorgosaurus and gave it the name Daspletosaurus taurusus, basically meaning frightful lizard. And even though it's smaller than T-Rex, still frightening. I mean, big, 9 meters long, 3 tons. That's terrifying. That's pretty terrifying. Now, at the moment, there's possibly 3 species of Daspletosaurus recognized, so this would make it one of the most speciose tyrannosaurs in paleontological history. 3 species, that's pretty much unheard of for a large theropod. Except for the odd occasion, like Allosaurus, potentially Torvosaurus. Yeah, pretty much unheard of. Oh yeah, there is the Ceratosaurus. But then again, that could just be ontogeny. I'm getting off topic. Now, in the past, it's actually been proposed that these Daspletosaurus species are actually part of an anagenetic lineage, basically meaning that there is one line of species evolving into another species. So you'll get species A evolving into species B evolving into species C. And the proposed line goes like this: Daspletosaurus was about 77 million years ago, Daspletosaurus wilsoni was about 76 million years ago, and Daspletosaurus horneri was 75 million years ago. And it appears from how these animals evolved their skulls that the skull was getting more robust. There were certain features that were reducing and becoming a lot more strengthened, a lot more orientated to a stronger bite, as tyrannosaurs are famous for. And that seems to be the case here with Daspletosaurus. But unfortunately, like when I go out on a pub crawl, the more you go along, the more details that seem to get a bit muddled. Come to think of it, did I actually go on a pub crawl last night? Off topic again. Oh, this is part of the video where we go sup with Daspletosaurus. Well, let me tell you. I'll try to. So, there were 2 papers in 2024. One actually showed that several specimens of Daspletosaurus actually overlapped with each other stratigraphically. So instead of one species evolving into each other, it seems like maybe one branched off from the others, and maybe one evolved into 2 species. It's a bit unnecessary, maybe, who knows? But it did show that maybe Daspletosaurus horneri was actually the youngest species, but proved the most basal compared to Daspletosaurus wilsoni and Daspletosaurus taurusus. And that was really interesting. And in fact, this paper actually refuted the idea of anagenesis. Now, if you thought that was confusing, the next paper, which was Warshaw et al. 2024, even more confusing. So, Warshaw et al. Actually showed that yeah, Daspletosaurus is actually anageneric, and that meant that, yeah, these species did evolve from one into another, into another, into another, into another, into another, into another. Sorry, I got carried away there with a number of Daspletosaurus species there. And they also further proved that there was no stratigraphical overlap like the previous paper showed. But then it gets even weirder. They demonstrate that Daspletosaurus is probably paraphyletic, and that means that not all these species descend from the same common ancestor, and therefore can't be linked into a true group. So these animals either in a wastebasket taxon, or they're not Daspletosaurus, and the only one we'll probably call Daspletosaurus is the type species Daspletosaurus torsus. And then in 2025, this was actually backed up by another paper, and yeah, it showed that Daspletosaurus did evolve through anagenesis, and that Daspletosaurus was evolving in a paraphyletic sense, which was good, but not good, but strange. But it did show that these animals were progressing more and more towards more derived tyrannosaurs, like Tyrannosaurus. In fact, the Daspletosaurinae is probably a sister taxon to the Tyrannosaurines, which includes Tyrannosaurus, Tarbosaurus, Chitinogranus, and probably some other little critters in there that haven't been named. And then another paper in 2025 came out, and this was a description of a new specimen of Daspletosaurus, which the colour coding on what was present and what wasn't is, let's just say, it angered a lot of people. But this specimen has been proposed to be a new specimen of Daspletosaurus horneri, and apparently may have shared same stratigraphical level, if I read this right, same stratigraphical level as Daspletosaurus wilsoni, but it does critique some of the diagnostic traits of wilsoni, and therefore wilsoni is probably a synonym of torsus. These names are just even worse than tongue twisters. I mean, I'm tossing my So, yeah, Daspletosaurus is really confusing. Very, very confusing. So, as it stands, there's a possibility that the third named species, the latest species, which is Daspletosaurus wilsoni, is probably not valid and possibly is just a synonym of Daspletosaurus torsus, which means there's only going to be two species recognised in the future, and that's going to be Daspletosaurus torsus and Daspletosaurus horneri, with the latter having a more robust skull than the other one. Yeah. So what's my personal thoughts on it? Well, at the end of the day, more specimens are required. There's probably going to be some reanalyses of some of the phylogenetic matrices and make sure that maybe ontogenetic aspects are not coded in, which does actually happen a lot in paleontology. Immature specimens do mess about with phylogenetic analysis a lot. Just a little tidbit, but I imagine that different populations of Daspletosaurus actually had different accessibilities to their preferred prey items, which seems to be ceratopsians, though there is some contradictory material from Daspletosaurus with a hadrosaur in its stomach. And if you're not eating harder or softer prey, you can actually be influencing the strength of your jaws, and therefore your skull has to change and adapt to that different feeding strategy, which may have occurred in different populations of Daspletosaurus. And I'm not talking different species of Daspletosaurus, I'm talking different populations within the same species. So one Daspletosaurus torsus population could be eating softer stuff than another population of that same species, and therefore their skulls might be coming out slightly differently. So this could be actually influencing why we've got a bit of confusion with Daspletosaurus taxonomically. But until then, sup with Daspletosaurus? No idea. But anyways, guys, hope you had a good day. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you later. Ta-da.